Yeah, so we will do a bit of a freestyle. And I would like to start, first of all, by the slide. Yes. You see a poem. The author of the poem is a researcher on leadership, traditional leadership. And you can see from the poem, besides the message he's giving, you see everywhere it's he. Carlene knows when European Institute for Gender Equality, when was established, we were trying to fight for the language to be changed, that it cannot be everybody is he. And like in this poem, every leader, everyone in the European Union is called legally he. So when I remember when we prepared a letter I sent to the DG Director General for Human Resources, the answer was, you know, in the footnote, it's written that he represents she as well. And it's since the Roman times, it was, you know, the law was written, so we can't change them. Which means that it doesn't function. Okay.
It's better.
Okay. So which means that we are still having, now it's 2021, and in many of the legal texts, the leaders, but also everyone who works and has some position is called he, which is the first thing to think about in changing leadership question. It's diversity we talked about, inclusion. It's always what you notice. It's he. Even Lithuanian president in the constitution, formally it is he. So it cannot be changed only when you talk and discuss. But the other thing, if you look at the message, from the traditional leadership, it's still the kind of the atmosphere is still the same. It is the leader is not noticed in the traditional, so that the leader gives and says, but I mean he or she, at that time it was only he, is in the background, so then the people would be empowered. And now when we talk about the present leadership, the modern leadership, and it's quite interesting, I by myself, and I discovered that the modern leadership where women come in, and that only started in 80s, 1980s, 90s. So all the leadership culture, analysis and research is only like 20, 30 years old, which also means that we don't have yet so much really to base our knowledge, our learnings on it, but what we see, there is a very big change. The interesting thing is that there is no one style on leadership. European style doesn't exist because we are all individuals, because we have the other capacities, this intersection with race, with age and all this. But what you see here, and that is I took from research, where they say that in all of those four features, intellectual stimulation is the only one where women perform not the same good as men. All the other three, women perform better. And if you think what we were talking today, charisma we didn't mention, but there was a question, I think, also in the panel, so what are the leaders? What does it mean? What are the traits of the leaders? So we talk, that is more like me political, but inspirational. This is, I mean, you also have to see how that could be connection, but very much individualized consideration is considered to be connected much more with the female style of leadership, where you have not only the empathy, emotional intelligence was mentioned today, but also all this caring and also open. We talked so much today. And if you think that comparing to men, men's style very often does not accept that. And I prepared the questions because I have three aspects which I would like to discuss with the panelists. And then if you think about those abilities, out of those four, which are considered to be key features for modern leadership, where women perform better. So now the first question, can these abilities be taught and strengthened? Especially when we teach leadership. We teach at the School of Economics, we teach at Vilnius, several universities, we teach in Sweden, and we teach everywhere. Can that be strengthened? And the other one, do women and men apply them differently? So now I will ask the colleagues, the panelists, to answer. Some maybe we have to work because it was also, Kata is there somewhere? Yes? Okay, so who would like to start?
this is on. Well, hello everyone. I think from my perspective, I can really draw on the insights that we gathered from Women Go Tech and the mentorship program that we've been running for 5 seasons now. We just closed 5th season. And while we don't exclusively focus on leadership or leadership skills over there, we're focused on helping people really make the step forward in the aspired career path, which is in tech, IT, and engineering. We, in a way, kind of facilitate taking leadership of their own careers, right? I know in the previous presentations, the speakers mentioned both the sticky floor and the glass ceiling as the 2 obstacles that must be dealt with in order to overcome these challenges. But when it comes to really taking leadership of your own career, and we kind of discovered that this is one of the biggest challenges, it's really inspiring these participants, the mentees of Women Go Tech program, to take leadership of their own career and work with the mentor, one-on-one, on equal basis, on a trusted kind of environment, to really find the motivation. I don't know, the mentor stimulates the person, the mentee, to make these steps and find the sort of the success story at the end of the mentorship program. So it's nothing in that mentorship program that is top down. It's really on the equal basis, and the mentee has to show the leadership. So this is not covering every single point that you have mentioned here, but I think that kind of relates. It relates quite well to what we're seeing in the mentorship program so far.
So you believe, just to summarize, if I understood right, you believe that that would be a strong support if, let's say, a woman has a potential, so to prepare and enter the mentorship program?
Well, yeah, of course. You know, we need self-motivation. We need the display of kind of leadership for your own career in order to be successful, right? And the mentor is there to help, but not to really take the hand and and walk that person across completely. No, the person needs to show leadership.
Okay, and now the second question, Kata was talking about that also. How do we see the differences? Because people were talking about talent, getting the potential of the talent. If you see a leader, if you should employ him or her. Now, in this case, it's her because we talk about female leadership. So, Kata, you were ready to speak about this. Do you think they are presenting them differently or using them differently?
Hi, good afternoon. I hope you can hear me. Virtual conferencing is strange. So just to start with, I completely agree. We believe that leaders are not born, but they are made and developed. And a lot of it is developing by self. And my answer to your question, this very interesting question, will reflect that. So I will focus on a little bit on the inspiring and charismatic part, because so often people think that it's men who are the charismatic leaders, who are the inspiring leaders, and that is definitely the stereotype. But there are good and bad examples. So if you think of Elizabeth Holmes of Theranos, for better or for worse, she was a very charismatic leader. What is interesting is that young Elizabeth, already at the age of 21, 22, tried to pick up masculine traits. So she changed her voice to sound deeper, which I cannot do, because she thought she would be taken more seriously and be a better leader. There's often very contradicting information, especially when people enter the program. We have some women think that they have to become more masculine to be more successful and less nurturing, because there's a stereotype that women have a nurturing style. At the same time, there's also the stereotype of the successful woman who is not nurturing other women. So there's a lot of contradictions here. There was a recent study I find really interesting about this. They had an amazing sample of 140 CEOs already. If you're interested, the title is Claiming the Corner Office, What Female CEO Careers and Implications for Leadership Development Are. They found that it's actually not masculine of feminine leadership that we are talking about, especially when applying these modern styles, but a mix of them. So women, when they become leaders, pick up masculine traits, and they also keep or develop some of their feminine traits in their leadership style and how they act and behave. However, what's really interesting is that the majority is still these feminine traits they use in order to succeed in the workplace. So feminine leadership behaviors is what they claim brought their success. And it also helped them to move beyond gender stereotypes. So this is quite abstract, and there's many of these differences associated with men and women as leaders. So let me just pinpoint maybe one. What I found during the Women in Leadership program at the Stockholm School of Economics in Riga, which I direct for senior women, so senior women leaders, not being old, meaning old, but experienced. My finding also aligns with the literature is that women are very inspirational. They are role models. They create and nurture good human relationships. They also develop followers. So a good team that follows them and is on their team, they motivate others to go beyond what is in their job description and to reach out and develop others. So they are charismatic, they are inspiring, they are nurturing, but also somehow they are intellectual. And participants, when we spoke of this program at SSE, often speak of they never thought they would end up like this, caring about human relationships, but it's something that came with experience and maturity and self-development. And this is, I think, also how my small comment relates to the previous one. It's self-development often that makes a very good leader. You keep reflecting and helping others and working with others. And that is perhaps not exclusive for women or men, but is somehow how women navigate the leadership space.
I think, Kata,
is it time to shut up?
No, what I was thinking, because now you went into the culture of leadership is the other topic, and I would like also now to add to this, because now we go to the next slide, and I have to see, where is it coming? It doesn't, yeah. So you see culture of leadership, and we talk also very much that it is so different, and again, how do you use? So what we see that I found also in this different research and surveys and all this, that women can achieve as leaders, so through their own businesses, much more than through the traditional organizations. And then the question is really like public. We know the ones who work in the public sector, they are tight straitjackets, they are much more, like rigid. And then for that meaning, you would believe that women leaders should be much more concentrated in the private sector. But at the same time, we also know that the private sector, now after the COVID and all the pandemic, it was much more, the blow was on the smaller businesses, not only because they couldn't get the loans, but also because there were so many different hinders for the women in the private business, despite the fact that their businesses would survive better. And then inclusivity. We talk about inclusivity, it was quite much discussed today. So what does it mean? We say that like the modern leadership, transitional and transformative leadership, women's style is called, which shows that women invite, women give respect, women develop, and women give status to each individual in the organization, whereas majority of men leaders, they are authoritative, they are really require dominance and respect. And there is a saying, I think Kata mentioned, they say that a female leader who is using transitional and transformative style, she is not respected as a leader. When the woman uses contractual style, which means transactional, which I say you do, then she's not respected as a woman. So we are between the hammer and the hard place, and we still have so big potential. So now also the question, which style would attract women leaders to STEM, science and technologies, and tech? And we will see now, I think Deimantė was the first.
Is it working? It is. I represent the Alter State, which is the innovation program. So when we talk about innovation, I think the very important part here is that we tend to talk about a lot of men participating in creating innovation. When we talk about majority of fintech, for instance, the area where I work now, we can see that we have a lot of men there as well. But there's one thing that I think we tend to forget about this, is that we have products that they actually consume by women at a big scale. So when we talk about, for instance, what advantages do we have for including women into the creation of innovations, for instance, or any different products. So the main, I guess, advantage is that you include your consumers in the future, one thing. Another thing is that women is half of the population, or even more sometimes, right? That means that we talk about creating innovative solutions, future environments, future societies, and so on. And women is a big part of it. And I think it's also kind of a mindset that we try to create in our organization for women, that they should be not only consuming what we create in the future, they should be actually creating the future. Because we heard a lot of stories today, or the personal examples that we have children, we have boys and girls, right? And we expect them to be like not talking about gender diversity in the future because we think this is given. But at the same time, it's very important to encourage women now to be part of the creating the environment that we want to live in. And from our own example, from the Alter State, we started with exclusively for women. But actually, even in the first year of the program, we noticed that we have few male colleagues there. And the fascinating part there was that they actually stepped down a bit in the moment when they needed to present their ideas or to pitch their ideas. And the reason is because they said, well, that's kind of not our party, no? This is, it's for women, so we want them to have a lead and then to be there. But at the same time, I think that it's, we cannot, have different chapters. So we have one chapter of men innovators and another chapter of women innovators. I think if you want to have a book, you need to have both. So it's also, it's having the program as Women Go Tech, for instance. I'm actually an alumni of this program as well. And having also Alter State, it's kind of very nice, I would even say sometimes incubator, where women have a community, environment, all the circumstances to do the innovation, to be creative, to actually do even more things in STEM or technology, because this is where we're aiming, right? But at the same time, I think it's good to also involve men in there, because real life, it's not incubator. So we don't need to, split only women and men. I think we also need to kind of try to encourage them collaborate. And of course, the first step sometimes for women, it is to have the safer environment where you want to start, maybe have some female like-minded friends or colleagues, right, that you want to start working on. But we cannot exclude men from there as well, because in the business, you cannot be alone.
Yeah, that's true. And in a way, I was thinking today, AGES Index was mentioned, and those of you who are following the agency, the only agency, EU agency in Vilnius, you know that in the index about STEM and about women in technology, this proportion is extremely huge. And women in STEM in like 12, 17 years, it was growing so slow. So all the European Union member states are trying to get more women. And then we were thinking, like now when AG did this research, and Carleen mentioned also about, the impact of COVID, and you think, oh, but it's flexible conditions, it's all possibilities for the women to do the work and also to progress in the career. But it's not like that. And I was wondering if Paulius has the answer, because you are in technology. Why is it? How can you attract more women, whichever situation that they would be interested? Because this is the future profession, the biggest profession in demand.
I think we're still searching for the best answers here and there. I'm lucky, or not even lucky, I'm happy actually to say that we found one working model, which is Women Go Tech. And just to illustrate the scale of it is that in 5 years and 5 seasons, Women Go Tech contributed about 50% of what all universities combine graduate women IT specialists in Lithuania. So this one program, mentorship program, added 50% of women talent in ICT in Lithuania in 5 years. So when it comes to the question, what does attract, I think that, ultimately it's the inclusivity. Like, this is the culture of inclusivity that does the magic. And in Women Go Tech, we really exploit this. We bring men and women from tech industry to become mentors. That already shows that the existing players in the industry are welcoming, and they're willing to share their stories. They're willing to accept your investment in trust into the mentor, into their mentors, and really walk the line together until they figure out the next steps, apply, and get the job, right? So in the essence, what the Women Go Tech program provides is an inclusive, safe environment to really open up, discover, face your challenges, let your leadership flourish with somebody who cares about you, and really kind of just figure out the questions you need to figure out before making the step into the industry, which then becomes much more known, familiar, because I've seen that there are people that are completely fine with me being a woman, knowing maybe only entry-level knowledge, but then being able to completely be a success story.
Kata, you are listening, I suppose. So what do you say? How does your school really try to get more women in tech? Because they also are the future leaders.
Thank you. I think it's a really interesting question. So our school also runs an undergraduate program. And I think that's where we really see not getting into women into tech. We are a business school. But getting women and men equally capable of doing tech. So our students, regardless of gender, start studying R on the first week of school and applying it throughout their degrees, for instance. So we don't actually distinguish. We also do a lot of mentoring through our alumni and companies and internships, again, where we find like-minded people and match them with students. And we find that it really helps because alumni are role models, but they also have a lot of know-how and networks in getting students interested. And would that be tech? So be it. We also collaborate extensively with mentorship programs in Latvia, such as Tech Girls, which is run by one of our alumni. So we do all those things. But what I find interesting is that if you look at the Baltics, there's actually a lot of women in tech compared to the UK or the US, for instance. So that's something I actually find stunning, that the percentages are so much higher, yet dropping. And I often wonder, and this might be a question for the audience, what is happening? Why? I mean, it might be that it's a post-socialist legacy, that it was very high and it's dropping. But where does the decline start? Is it at school? Is it at high school? Because by the time students arrive to our university, there is definitely that gap already.
Now I think again, no, it's good, because now you are leading us to the third aspect, which is, now I hope the slides will come up. Yeah, gender roles and attitudes. And as you see, I took information from the European Agency for Gender Equality. And as you see, what is happening now, this is more like this COVID impact report. So work part-time. You see 25 to 49 age, which is the most ripe for the work and the most fruitful age. And 1 in 3 worked part-time. And what EGE's report shows is that they were forced, in the sense, involuntarily. They had to choose the part-time because the kindergartens were closed. The men did not take it the same much, even if the number of men also increased. So which means that we talked earlier about this pyramid of power. We talked about, how women could use the talent. But if you choose, because of the family reason, to stay and only take some part, your pension goes low, the status goes low, and all the education, everything. The other one, of the lone parents, which majority are women, of single parents or lone parents, 13.6, and then only 7.4% of men employed on temporary contract. And again, that shows, because somebody earlier were talking also about I think I put a note that, let's say, what happens? It was the manpower, that we have the problem that, okay, we are trying to, the employer requests that 50% at least the people would be in the office. And then when you see about temporary contract, it's also very much that the women have, if it's not technology, they have the less kind of simpler jobs. So who can request or expect a woman to be a leader when she has to go on temporary contract, when she doesn't have a chance? So that shows that we are inhibiting like this stereotype that the women cannot do it. So now there are a few questions, and also we could see what you would answer. Do the measures applied by the male or female leaders bring different effect? Anybody could say. Deimantė?
I think they could bring different effect, and I think that we also talked today quite a lot about role models, and I think this is one of the possible, we don't have the holy grail, I guess, here as an answer, but that could be as one of the things, because if you have a leader that is also overcoming the same situation or some circumstances that they are familiar, so probably they could help you to understand how this could be applied. So, for instance, if we have, sometimes we say that we have a culture where you can have the work-life balance, which is healthy, right? But then you see your leaders not really following that. So it's either man or woman, it doesn't matter. But you see that there's no work-life balance. This is focus on work, and this is the only thing that you are measured by. So I think that's also one of the things that we could encourage our leadership, and also it was said that we have a lot of C-level leaders in many companies, I guess, and even in the boards, that they have males, right? So they are not females. And then I guess that the entire culture could mean that, we have a bit more focus on you need to have your work done rather than we can balance it. So I think that the role model for having the female leader that is actually having a family and then trying to balance those things, and not necessarily going part-time contract, but trying to kind of work it out in the way it does. And especially in the pandemic, I was also working in big corporations at that time, so we actually saw quite different examples of the leaders who were females, and then some of them they kind of they were running their teams also on the same terms, that if you have children, it's fine for you to cut off for half a day, or sometimes you need to balance with your family, right? But it is not a big problem if you have this, let's say, situation at home, right? That you need to balance those things. So I think it's very much on the leaders themselves to look through their own experiences and then, not only say that you will apply this culture, but actually do it.
So you're talking now twice, I think today was mentioned commitment from the top. I think first it was the Swedish State Secretary and then it was Tele2. So it is really very, very important if the signal comes that, okay, we accept, we support, we really support your ambitions because you are worth it and we really have this inclusivity. But do you think male leaders now are taking that as well, you know, this commitment for gender equality and also giving the equal conditions, or is it more like for the female leaders?
I would like to say they do, but I think it depends. And I think when we talk about male leaders, I heard quite a lot men talking about being feminist, being pro all the female initiatives and so on. But I really like the example you gave. It's monitor yourself. So I think it's one thing what you say, another thing is what you actually think. And this unconscious bias is pretty big. And even when I think about myself, I also tend sometimes to think that that maybe female leaders, they could be in some senses, maybe, you know, some, not maybe competences, but some personal traits, let's say, could be like a weaker point, right? But this is the moment where I need to stop myself, and I think for the male leaders, it's also the same. It's the more they be part of the discussion. It's not, you know, only talk that we need to have the or we encourage female leaders, but actually be of the part of the discussion, be part of the taking the decision, and ask for your counterparts or actually ask for your colleagues to have the opinion about that and listen to it. Because it's something, you know, to be on the top and then give the decision, but that's another part is actually going there and listen what people say.
You see now the last points, also some facts from AGES research, and then you see the big difference, especially for those who are having children, and then even all those technology ways, you know, to work, which would help you to work. Still, you see how much is the difference, the burden on the women, and especially if they would like to be leaders. So now it's just a few, in 2 words or 3. Both of you and Kata, how can you encourage and support the female leaders? What would you say?
Do you want to start? Should I?
You go.
In few words, I think first thing is to help them, for instance, have the mentorship. I think this is very important, as already a colleague mentioned that there are entire programs for that. Another thing is actually help people to get their network wider, because it doesn't matter, you know, if you work online, remote, or you work on-site, it's always very important to have the network that will help you. And in some research, you can see that women are very good in networking in general, right? Like we like to talk. But when it comes to business networks, it's the opposite way, because just to go there and do the business networking, you know, and find some new acquirers or colleagues or some business partners even, and even in innovation programs, there is also sometimes the lack of resources, in the sense that women tend to have difficulties to find the co-founders, for instance, for some programs. That's why they don't finalize their idea, and then they don't go to entrepreneurship. So I think it's let's say those 2 things, just help them to find a mentor if needed, and then also help to find the business network.
Paulius, what do you say?
I'll just add to what's been said, and I think one important aspect that shouldn't be missed is be conscious of unconscious bias. So whenever you're thinking, double check if there is something that sways your decisions or perceptions about the leader, whether female or male, or unknown gender, whatever. Double check if there isn't an unconscious bias in the background that drives your decision one way or another, so you don't miss on the opportunities in realizing all the potential that person has, and also you don't diminish that person's opportunities to be successful in their own way.
Kata, what do you say?
2 things. First, I think not just allow space, but create space for reflection for the team, the leadership team, and also potential leaders in your organization, regardless of whether they are men or women. So create space for reflection on how they want to live their life and work, but also develop themselves. And two, you yourself as a leader should reflect on the culture and type of your organization and see how you can support your team and yourself better. Taking care of yourself as a leader will allow you to take care of others. So those would be my 2 bits.
Yeah, very good. As you see now, you already could get quite many ideas for the next conference in a year or 2, because it's several of the main points which then everybody could dig deeper, because the hands-on experience really shows that it's needed. Thank you very much for the Kata, Deimantė and Paulius. It was, at least for me, it was interesting answers also to learn a bit more about how it works in practice, and also the 3 aspects, are not solved yet. So the gender equality, there was the question, is not yet close. Thank you. Thank you so much.